Okay, hey everybody, I'm going to be doing a video from my screen today. Haven't done this in a long time. So, people were talking about my infinite growth video and they really liked it, and I thought I'd give you a little bit more on that subject. I got some examples here of some infinite growth. This one down here on the bottom left is the supply and demand for oil since like 2004 to 2008 or 9. And let's see, the demand is in these squares and the circles is the supply. And the price is this graph that keeps going up. So as you can see, as the demand increases, the price keeps going up, even though we have less and less of it. And over here on the bottom right is an infinite growth example of world population since the 1300s. You can see the population of the Earth was pretty even with about a billion people until about 1800s. And of course, this was when the Industrial Revolution sort of took place. And as you increase well, I guess the 1800s, you had like the mass producing things when they invented the assembly line. Then in the 1900s you had sort of the Industrial Revolution, sort of made an increase with the train and eventually planes, led people to be able to get around the world and travel and meet other people. And then when you get to the internet, you just kind of skyrocket. Now we're at like a global communication scale. Everybody can pretty much meet anybody else in the world just by a click of a mouse. At the top right here we have, this is from the Al Gore thing about the climate change speech he gave. It's been kind of controversial because, as you can see, the top graph is the CO2 concentration compared to the bottom is the temperature in Fahrenheit of the planet, and it looks really similar. But there's something of a controversy about, like, the scale at the bottom is so big. There's like 100,000 years between each one of these marks. So just like a little bit of the graph being off just a little bit is like 800 something years. So even if like the skyrocketing CO2 concentration right now is like way up here, it may be 800 years before we notice any effects of it. But if you look at these crazy spikes, if you were to like zoom in on like just this section of the spike, maybe this high point right here would be like similar to this high point right here, and you can kind of see what you expect to happen after like a giant spike. Everything just goes to shit. Temperatures drop. The average temperature, not the temperature right now because it's winter. That's why you should say climate change instead of global warming, because global warming actually ends up being freezing because you get really hot and then things crash and then it gets really cold. There seems to be an ice age that follows any drastic change in global temperatures. Now over here, this is called a bell curve. This is what I want to talk about today a little bit. A bell curve is kind of like an example of when you have a finite resource for most part. Like, you could use this as an example of the oil consumption that we've actually had. Like over here, we're not actually using a lot of oil because when they knew oil existed back in like the Middle Ages, but they only used it for like lanterns and like pitch and stuff like that. Then as you have like oil producing machines and cars, people start using all our oil resources up. It goes up the curve. And now we're at the peak of this bell curve, which is what they call peak oil. And we think we found all the oil we have, so our resources are going to start going down until we just run out of oil and we won't be able to use it anymore. That's why it's called a bell curve, because it's shaped like a bell. Another example of a bell curve I could probably see being like company advancement. Like if you work at a company, let's say this y-axis is the stress level, or the lack of stress. Actually, it'd be an inverse bell curve. And x is going to equal your advancement in the company. When you start out, you have the most stress, because you're doing like a lot of physical labor. As you work your way up the bell curve, you get like in kind of an intermediate, kind of a manager type position. Kind of the stress goes down because you're just like managing some typical laborers, not like a big bunch of stress on you. Then as you get to like CFO, CEO, and you're managing everybody, your stress goes back up again because now you're responsible for everybody, managers, laborers, like production of everything. Another really good example I like for the bell curve is let X equal the amount of the Bible you have read, and let Y equal your belief in God, right? People who haven't read the Bible a lot have hardly, if you haven't read it at all, you probably don't believe in God. As you read a little bit of the Bible, or actually you have preachers telling you what the Bible says, you start to develop a belief in God. Until you get to this point where you're like a fundamentalist Christian, where you've only read the part of the Bible, like the New Testament and what Jesus has said, and you picked and chose all the really good points that you like. And then as you start, like, I'm going to read the Bible from beginning to end, and then you start reading Genesis, Leviticus, Deuteronomy, Exodus, and you start seeing all this evil shit, and you're like, what the hell is going on here? Then you try to like make sense of it, and you really read the whole thing, and then you get to where you're an atheist and you don't believe God at all because you actually read the whole fucking Bible. One of my favorite examples of a bell curve right there is belief in God. as you read the Bible. Now, as we go to this other document I have prepared, this is a my explanation of the Big Bang Theory. I thought I'd show you guys. Here we have a cube. Let's say this represents a meter squared or a meter cubed of just empty vacuum. Okay, let's say we're going to add some stuff. Let's say this is a typical, you got cosmic rays probably coming from different directions, shooting through this thing from different suns, different stars. You've got like some cosmic dust. Let's put some dust in here, some particles. You got some muons, some gluons, some free photons, some protons. And then you've also got like this mysterious dark matter in here. You don't even know what it is. You can't see it, right? And you've got like maybe an asteroid over here. And, well, it's like a meter cubed, but you can imagine like there's an asteroid or something in this cube, right? If I were to just take all that away, completely empty out this 1 meter cube section of space, it's still a thing. It's not actually what you would call nothing, which is like a lot of people use this argument for God, that you've never seen something come from nothing. That's true because we've never actually seen nothing. Empty space by itself without anything else in it is still a thing, because we've done experiments like with light coming from behind the sun, for example. When you have a massive object, you got something behind it, you still have this ability for it to be bent, like so. This is an extreme example. Let me use a smaller one. Distort, twirl, and we'll turn this down to like about like that. So now we've bent space because the gravity affects empty space. You can actually warp it, change the shape of it, which is how you have gravity wells, which makes planets go around the suns. So when you have empty space, it's just a vacuum without anything at all, and it completely void of anything. It is still not technically nothing. We have no examples of ever having nothing. As far as we can tell, everything has always been here. It's eternal. Matter can't be created or destroyed. So when you say something can't come from nothing, you're just bringing up a stupid argument, because there is no such thing as nothing, as far as we can tell. You can't demonstrate that there's ever been nothing, or that there ever will be nothing. Why people say that there was nothing is because you have this theory of the Big Bang being an infinitesimal point, a singularity at the beginning of time. Now I'm going to draw the expansion of the universe. Let's see if I can do this right, like so. Okay, so here we are. We're about right here, right? We're on the planet Earth. The universe has expanded this much since the beginning, right? This is 13 billion years of expansion. And we can see back in time all the way to this one little point. So when you get to this point right here, we don't know what happened. There's a little point right, like less than a fraction of a second after the Big Bang started, called the Planck time, that we can't see past because physics breaks down. There's also at the upper limit of the universe light speed, which is the two big constants. You got the Planck and you got light speed. Big constants. We call them constants because they don't change. If you ever hear a creationist try to pull some bullshit on you about like the tinkering with the universe, and like if you ever hear like someone talking about fine-tuning arguments, that they think that if you change this Planck constant, or if you change the speed of light or gravity, you change any of these constants, then the universe wouldn't exist as it is today. That's true. The universe would exist in some other fucking way. But since these are constants, they can't be changed. There's no proof that constants can change. That's why we call them constants. If they could just be changed willy-nilly, if there's some kind of station in the universe somewhere on some planet where you got all these knobs and sticks and people screwing things up and like pushing buttons and changing things around, they wouldn't be fucking constant. You couldn't be able to rely on them. That's why the physical world would call them laws, not because somebody wrote down in a book like this has to be this way because it's the law. We call them laws because they can't be changed. Everything follows them. So you got these constants at the upper end and lower end of the universe, right? So creationists like to think before this singularity, you had nothingness. That there was no expansion, contraction, whatever. Just like no life in the universe except for God. Let's draw God out here somewhere. Because you see the universe over here. Let me just like delete this line real quick. Okay, so you got the universe. Here's all the planets, solar system, stars, everything over here in the universe. This is what we call existence. This big part right here, everything in this triangle is existence. God is over here somewhere out in space that doesn't exist because he's not in this triangle. If he was in this triangle, then God would exist. They say God exists over here somewhere, therefore he's everywhere at once because he's just outside of space and time, and he's like bigger than it all. That way he could just create it. We've only seen things that are able to do stuff that have been like biological. Anything that's not biological or doesn't have a body to move around, we've never had any evidence that can do things. Everything we've seen that does things is alive and it moves around and exists in nature. God apparently does not. So I don't know why you would go to jump to point the God out here outside of space and time. What I would do, it seems to me, since you've got these lines of expansion, you go up, you go down, right? It's pretty simple. If you take one of these lines and you just extend it on out. Shoop. Well, that's not really very straight. Let's take it from here. You take this line, you just extend it. Take this line, and you just extend it like so. That seems to be the direction the lines are going in. It seems to make a lot more sense to me that you just expand the lines on out. So over here, what do you have? You have a universe that used to be expanded, and it started contracting until it got to a singularity, and it started expanding again. This is what most people call the oscillating universe theory. I pretty much think it makes a lot of sense. The only point that doesn't make sense is right here at the singularity, which exists for less than half of a second. Or it could be like this. Let me just delete this. It could be that you have a period of nothing and then a contracting period, like so. So this area right here could be billions of years, could be a second, could be a couple hours, who knows? Maybe when you get all of the matter condensed where there's no empty space and it just spins around and gets all really hot, it maintains a certain level of equilibrium for so long until one little fucking particle gets out of whack and it causes this cascading effect. Cascading effects is another thing I was going to mention. You'll probably be most familiar with this from Diablo 2 if you've ever played a Necromancer with the Corpse Explosion. Once you kill one thing and you use Corpse Explosion, that damage from that thing kills all the other things around it, and then those things kill all the things around them. So you have this cascading effect where it's like a chain reaction. Everything starts multiplying exponentially and damage goes crazy, right? That is what probably happened at the Big Bang. And when one little fucking particle gets out of whack, throws off the equilibrium, the whole thing flies apart and starts expanding outwards. Most likely it was more like this. More like this, where everything contracts. Now what you have here, this is like the bell curve. You get to this point where the universe can't expand any farther because it's held together by this layer of dark matter or dark energy, and it starts contracting again. And this over here starts contracting again, and we'll eventually get to like another point of singularity over here. There may have already been one in the past where it did the same fucking thing over here. And that's not a very good line. But we've already had multiple Big Bangs, like one over here, one over here, one over here. This is the most recent one. We're just in this part where it's in between. Right now we're expanding. Eventually the universe might start contracting. Everything get closer together and won't have this heat death where everything gets super cold. I'm trying to basically give you an idea of what it's like inside my brain, because it's easier to show you with pictures than to like just tell you with words. Oh, one more quick thing. Let's say you have this down here, this chain of, let's say you've got this expanding, contracting. You might notice this also looks like a wave, like sound waves or light waves, right? And you got the universe hitting all these Big Bangs, and all these different connecting points, right? It looks a lot like DNA, right? Only DNA is constantly held apart by these, see, these aren't actually connecting. This is just like a different view. Nucleotides keep the DNA apart, so it stays parallel to each other all the time, right? Now, I don't believe in soulmates. Not really, like, I don't believe people have souls. But you could have soulmates, in a sense. Because the theory of multiple realities says that there are different realities. Let's say this is a section. If you were to take the whole universe, which is three-dimensional, or actually four-dimensional if you count time, you put it into like a two-dimensional slice. Like this is a plate. And you've got another one like this. Right? And you've got another one like this. And all these different universes are side by side. And if you ever seen that movie, what was it, One with Jet Li, where he has like multiple versions of himself and he lives different lives, or the butterfly effect, do you know anything about multiple realities? Let's say there's something running through all of these different realities, right, that connects them all. Let's say you have a girlfriend right now, right? Maybe your girlfriend is your soulmate because through all of these different realities, of which there are billions and billions, you might keep meeting up with your girlfriend in a different form. She might not always be a girl. You might be two gay guys in like this universe. Or in this universe, you might be two lesbians. You might be a girl and she's a girl. Or in this universe, you might be a boy and she might be a girl, but you don't actually get together. Like you meet, but something happens that keeps you apart. So that would be like one of these universes where you didn't make the connection. Like you have a nucleotide when you get together. Every time you get together in the universe, you procreate, you keep your species going on, it makes like a chain, and it keeps the universe going at an equidistant point. But maybe this universe, you didn't get together because there's no nucleotide there. It's just like you can allow for so many of those mistakes and keep the structure intact. I'm getting pretty trippy right here, I guess. But anyway, the universe may also loop back around on itself like this. Instead of being going in one direction, shoopity shoopity shoopity, maybe this cosmic chain of events keeps going around and it circles back on itself and eats its own tail like a one of those snake thingies from Resident Evil. So you have this whole interconnected, it's infinite in the sense that it doesn't end because the circle never ends, but it is finite in that you can draw a circle around it and say this is the whole fucking thing. If you can do that, it's not infinite because you can draw a point around it. Anything you can isolate and say, oh, here's the whole thing, then it's not infinite. Which is why I think people, when they created God, they made it a little bit too obvious. They said God is infinite, which we have no examples of anything being infinite. It's only like a concept. And they also give him like all these superpowers, like he's omnipresent, he's omniscient, he can see everything, he's omnibenevolent, he can forgive anything, he knows everything, he has like his opinion is always right, you know. These are human concepts that we fucking threw into the thing because we're just like children. When they imagine things, they're like, what's the biggest thing there is? Well, I want something even bigger than that. Well, I want the thing that's the biggest thing that you can imagine. And that's what we do. We just throw these giant omnis at things and like we give them superhuman traits to the greatest extent of our imagination, which shows you that the people that created God were like they had a childlike mind, in my opinion. It looks like I'm running out of disk space, so I'm going to have to cut this video off. So I hope that explained a lot more about what I'm thinking. Alright, I freed up some space on the hard drive, so I thought I'd talk a little bit more about this. I was looking up some pictures on Google. So I was trying to find a better example of that drawing I made, and this one's like an animated picture it shows. I think this has something to do with determinism and the observer effect. Like this is showing universes that exist that fluctuate, and then as they can come in contact with this other universe, it becomes the one that we live in. Which is kind of how the observer effect works, like with the what was it, Heisenberg or whatever with the cat. The cat is both alive and dead at the same time until you observe it. It's kind of like the universe is in flux. It's not Heisenberg. Schrodinger. Fucking Schrodinger's cat, right. So that's one possibility. My theory kind of goes with, kind of gives things more structure. It keeps them rigid. The thing, like I use this picture right here because it shows like parallel plates. But look at all these drawings people are making, like this and this. Look, somebody's actually thinking about some shit. I like this. People are they're using their brains out there in the world somewhere. This one guy had some stuff with some math. I don't know what that is. There's a guy drawing a fucking tesseract. Whoa, that's trippy. He's like figuring out angles of shit. He's trying to figure out the goddamn fourth dimension. I like this. I'll have to check this out later. Anyway, to get back to what I was talking about. Let's turn this off. Let's say this universe right here, this gray one, and this one over here are the two extremes of the universe. This is like one end of the universe, is the other. So all this, there's actually more than just this one plate in the middle. There's like an infinite number. But things like soulmates keep this infinite distance apart so they don't smack into each other. It's kind of like where my theory goes. Some people think that these plates, like, they flip and flop around and they're all like in motion, and when they come in contact you can have like wormholes that lead to other dimensions or other parallel universes or things. Or maybe determinism where like if they come in contact they merge and they become the same universe. Like if you just seen the newest episode of Fringe, I think that's what's happening. The two Olivias have become the same Olivia. Like she's got the memories of both and she's becoming the one person. So in my theory, you have things like soulmates that run through these different universes and keep them all connected, and they keep them equidistant apart. Like me and Double D, I think, are probably soulmates. And like say in this universe, and this universe, and this universe, and all like a whole bunch more in between, but you can't see them. Then we get married, and we have kids, and that causes a stability. There's also an equal, like probably even more number of universes where we don't. This could be one of them. It could be one of the ones where we do. I don't know yet. That's what makes life interesting, is trying to figure out what kind of universe you live in. But let's say one of these universes exists out here where me and Double D don't get together, right? Let's take it to the extreme. Let's say in this universe right here that I'm drawing, I end up marrying a gay guy in China, because that's like, I'm trying to go to the extreme of making it really hard to believe, right? I was telling Spam about this the other day, like what if, like, what something could happen that made me and Spam get together in some universe. So like, me and a gay guy in China, what are the steps that would happen for this universe to exist? It's not really that hard when you think about it. If you ever played 20 questions, every time you ask a question, you limit the answer down. Like if you have a set number of like 10 billion things, if you say, like, say you got 7 billion people on the planet, right? And I'm trying to find out one person. If I said, is it a man or a woman? You say it's a woman. Okay, I can eliminate 3.5 billion right there. If I say, are they above 6 feet tall? Oh, they are. Or I can eliminate fucking 90% of the ones that are left. And you can really limit things down by asking simple questions. Like if you go to Google Earth and you want to find your house, you can zoom right the fuck in with like a few clicks of the mouse wheel, and you can go right to your house. How big the Earth is that you can do that, where you just look and you know exactly where to go? Because you're making these minor adjustments in your mind. You're like getting rid of everything that is not your house. It's so fucking crazy when you think about it. So like me getting together with a gay guy in China, how would that happen? Well, first something would happen in my childhood that would traumatize me to make me gay, right? Not that weird. Some people they say you're born gay. Maybe I'm just born gay, so that's like a 50-50 chance. Or they say 1 in 10 people are gay, so it's like a 10% chance right there. Boosh. 10% chance of being gay. Alright, and then you go to like something happens in my childhood that makes me have an old man fetish. Probably less than 10%, but it happens. So old man fetish, right? So that happens. Something happens in my childhood that makes me move to China. Could happen. A lot of people will migrate to other countries. It's not unreasonable. So just there, 10% I'm gay, I have an old man fetish, and I moved to China. More specifically, I moved to the part of China where this old gay man that I end up marrying happens to live. You got like 4 things that puts me in the old man's town that makes me gay, and I have an old man fetish, so I'm only looking for old gay men in China. What are the odds that there's going to be more than one old gay Chinese man in this city where this Chinese man lives, and I end up finding him and getting together? 4 fucking questions, and I'm a gay guy in China marrying some old man. You see how crazy that is? Any possible universe you can imagine can probably exist. Except for like weird shit like a cartoon universe. Like what would happen to make a cartoon universe? Everything we know about physics would have to be different. There's like you can't just limit that down to like one question. It's like everything is different. Photons equal mass. So things with color are real. Things with protons, maybe protons are light in this universe. So you have like I'm trying to figure out how to make a cartoon universe. It doesn't make a lot of sense to my brain. I'm just trying to figure out like light is equal to things that have light and color that we would call animated, that would have to be spontaneously generated, not created by a mind. Or they could be. God would have to exist. Or some type of God that creates cartoons. A cartoon-making God would exist in a universe where photons are real, or they have physical mass. I don't know. It's so fucking trying to imagine, like, how would you create a cartoon universe? It doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, it's beyond my understanding. Or how would you create a universe where gravity works in the opposite? It pushes things apart. So that would be a little easier to come up with. But anyway, some things like hold the universes together. They create these threads of fate or whatever that cause things to go together, like soulmates. Or it could be that things happen like huge events, like the World Trade Centers going up, like staying up or getting destroyed, right? That could be one universe. In one universe, maybe Hitler is killed. One universe, Hitler succeeds. And that could cause, like, maybe there's a polarity. Instead of having the universes all in a line like this, maybe there's like positive and negative universes. Just like in Fringe, there's universes where the Statue of Liberty is green and universes where the Statue of Liberty is copper. Well, it's always copper, but it doesn't have the erosion. So what's up with that universe? Why does that universe not have the oxygen fucking up the copper and turning it green in that universe? Do they keep cleaning it every year? I don't know. I'm trying to get I'm getting off track a little bit, but I hope I've made you understand how parallel universes work and some other crazy shit. Thank you.